The mummy of Lady Rai is one of the oldest known mummies uncovered in Egypt. She was discovered in 1881, and researchers estimate that she was about 30 to 40 years old when she died around 1530 BC. From the writings left behind about Lady Rai, she was the nursemaid to Queen Ahmose-Nefertari, who was the first queen of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. The mummified body of Ahmose-Nefertari, an auntie to Ahmose-Nefertari, was found in Lady Rai's outer coffin. Queen Ahmose-Nefertari was the first great royal wife of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. She was a daughter of second Neren-Tau and Ahotep, and royal sister and wife to Ahmose. Her son Amenhotep became pharaoh, and she may have served as his regent when he was young. Ahmose-Nefertari was deified after her death. She was the great royal wife Ahmose, with whom she had 3 sons. She is depicted on a stela from Karnak with a son named Ahmose-Ankh, and another son named Simon was reburied in the royal cache DB 320. But it was her son Amenhotep who eventually succeeded his father to the throne. She was also the mother of 2 daughters who became royal wives, Ahmose-Meritamun and Ahmose-Sitamon. She may also have been the mother of Mutnofret, the wife of Thutmose. A prince named Ramuz included among the lords of the West, and known from a statue now in Liverpool, may be another son of Ahmose-Nefertari. Queen Ahmose-Nefertari had many titles, including those of hereditary princess, great of grace, great of praises, king's mother, great of king's wife, God's wife, united with the white crown, king's daughter, and king's sister, and was arguably the most venerated woman in Egyptian history. The queen was referred to as Goddess of Resurrection. Ahmose-Nefertari likely died in approximately the 5th or 6th year of Thutmose. Her death is recorded in the stela of a Wab priest called Nefer. The text mentions that the divine consort Ahmose-Nefertari, justified with the great god lord of the West, flew to heaven. The father of the Nefer, who was a priest as at that time, who was likely overseer of the royal works in Eni, oversaw her burial. She was likely buried in Dra Abu El Naga and had a mortuary temple there. When Ahmose-Nefertari died, she was deified and became mistress of the sky and lady of the west. Ahmose-Nefertari's mummy is assumed to have been retrieved from her tomb and at the end of the New Kingdom and moved to the royal cache in DB 320. Her presumed body with no identification mark was discovered in the 19th century and unwrapped in 1885 by Emil Brugsch. 2 mummies were found in a coffin, one of which was more carefully wrapped than the other. The former was assumed to be that of Queen Ahmose-Nefertari by the museum authorities, which the other was stored in a damp room, which caused the mummy to decompose so much so that it was buried in the garden of the museum. Maspero, at later date, came to assume that the mummy buried in the garden was that of Ahmose-Nefertari. Ahmose-Nefertari had died in her 70s. Similarly to Teshisheri, her grandmother, her hair had been thinning and plaits of false hair had been woven in with her own to cover the up. Her body had been damaged in antiquity and was missing her right hand. Several authors highlight the significant prominence of Ahmose-Nefertari's front teeth, as revealed in X-ray images, and also characterized as severe maxillary or dental alveolar prognatism. The same authors bring attention to the presence of the same traits in Ahmose-Nefertari's grandmother, Teshisheri, suggesting that it is genetically determined and inherited. In 2021, Ahmose-Nefertari's mummy was moved to National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, along with those of 3 other queens and 18 kings in an event termed the Pharaoh's Golden Parade. In the Turban region, and especially in the village of the Dar el Madina, Ahmose-Nefertari is mentioned or depicted in at least 50 private tombs and on a large number of objects which are datable from the reign of Ahmose III to the end of the 20th dynasty. Lady Rai's embalming process involved being wrapped in linen. Her face and body were coated with a mixture of resin and sand. There was an embalming incision on the left side of her body, which was covered with an embalming plate. Jewelry would have been placed on her right wrist during the mummification process. In 2009, researchers conducted a computed tomography scan of Lady Rai's body and discovered that she had atherosclerosis. She is the oldest known mummy with the disease, and several other Egyptian mummies also show signs of atherosclerosis. Her mummified remains were discovered in the royal cache next to the El-Bahari in 1881, and she is estimated to have been in her 30s at the time of her death. The mummy was unwrapped by GRAFTON ELLIOT Smith in 1909. He distinguished her mummy as the most perfect example of embalming that has come down to us from the early 18th dynasty, or perhaps even of any period, now in the Egyptian Museum, Cairo. Lady Rai served as a nursemaid to Queen Ahmose-Nefertari during the early 18th dynasty in ancient Egypt. The mummy was unwrapped by G.E. Smith on June 26, 1909. Smith characterized her as the least unlovely of all discovered female mummies and described her as a slim, gracefully built woman with small childlike hands. Lady Rai had been wrapped in linen when she was mummified. Her face and body were thinly coated with resin mixed with sand. An embalming incision was found on the left side of the body, the traditional position found in most mummies at this time. The incision was covered with a fusiform embalming plate, again something traditionally found in mummies during the 18th dynasty. Her mummified remains were discovered in a Theban tomb in 1881. Her braided hair was protected by bandages. The hair color and texture of Lady Rai provides important information to challenge the ideas that Egypt was a special part of the African continent where black people didn't live.